Imagine a young woman, just 25 years old, perched high in the branches of a tree in Kenya, watching the African sunrise. In that quiet, wild moment, the weight of an entire empire settled onto her shoulders. She went up a princess and came down a queen. Accession Day is a date marked by both the sharp sting of grief for a beloved father and the awe-inspiring beginning of a 70-year reign. While the world saw the pomp, the diamonds, and the heavy velvet robes, the Queen's private celebrations were often much more intimate. The menu she chose for these anniversaries wasn't just about luxury, it was a map of her life. It was a collection of flavors that connected her to the father she missed, the husband who stood by her, and the country she promised to serve until her last breath. Picture the polished silver glinting under the chandeliers of Sandringham, the smell of wood smoke in the air, and a menu designed with quiet, deliberate care. It wasn't just a meal, it was a renewal of a vow. From the wild game of the Scottish Highlands to the delicate sweets of her childhood, these dishes tell the story of a woman who was a monarch to the world, but a daughter and a wife at her own table. Let's step inside the palace and explore the 10 secret dishes Queen Elizabeth chose for her accession day. Dish number 1, Gleneagles Pat for Queen Elizabeth. The flavours of the Scottish Highlands weren't just a culinary preference, they were a connection to her soul. Gleneagles Pat was a dish that appeared frequently during her most private and significant celebrations, especially on the anniversaries of her accession. This wasn't your ordinary store-bought spread. It was a sophisticated, multi-layered masterpiece of smoked trout, fresh salmon, and smoked mackerel, often bound together with a hint of cream and horseradish. But the reason it held such a prominent place on her secret menu went beyond the taste. This dish represented Balmoral Place, where she felt most at home, away from the prying eyes of the press and the rigid protocols of London. Each bite carried the essence of the cold, clear lochs and the misty hills she loved to walk. It was a tribute to the rugged beauty of Scotland, a land that offered her sanctuary during her father's passing and throughout her long reign. Serving this pâté on Accession Day was a deliberate choice. It brought the outdoors inside, bridging the gap between her duties as a monarch and her identity as a countrywoman. It was light yet deeply flavorful, mirroring the Queen's own personality, refined and understated, but with a rich history beneath the surface. For a woman who spent her life in the spotlight, this simple, chilled starter provided a moment of quiet reflection, a taste of the wilderness she called her paradise. It was the perfect opening to a meal that honored both her heritage and her heart. Is fish pâté sophisticated delicacy, or is it just a fancy version of sandwich spread? Dish number 2. Gaelic steaks. When it came to the heart of the Accession Day dinner, the Queen often looked toward a dish that was as robust and enduring as the monarchy itself. Gaelic steaks. This wasn't just a simple piece of meat. It was a culinary tradition that paired perfectly seared beef with a rich, velvety sauce made from heavy cream, mushrooms, and a generous splash of fine whiskey. For the Queen and Prince Philip, this meal was a symbol of strength and warmth, often enjoyed in the cosy dining rooms of Sandringham or Balmoral, while the winter winds howled outside. The smoky depth of the whiskey sauce added a layer of sophistication that turned a standard steak into a royal event. But as we picture this sizzling plate, it makes one wonder, how do you like your own steak cooked? Are you a fan of a traditional well-done finish like the Queen, or do you prefer it rare? While the dish is a beloved classic in the palace, it often sparks a debate among food critics. Is drenching a high-quality steak in a thick cream and whiskey sauce a stroke of genius, or is it a controversial move that masks the natural flavor of the meat? Regardless of the debate, for Elizabeth, it was a comforting reminder of her Scottish heritage and a celebration of British produce. Dish number 3, coronation chicken. Few dishes are as deeply entwined with the Queen's identity as coronation chicken. Originally created by Constance Spry and Rosemary Hume for her 1953 coronation banquet, this dish was a bold statement for a young monarch entering a new era. It features tender, cold chicken enveloped in a creamy golden curry sauce, subtly sweetened with apricots and spiced with a hint of the exotic. For Elizabeth, including this on an Accession Day menu was a nostalgic nod to the very beginning of her Janaya flavour that symbolised a Britain emerging from the shadows of war and embracing the vibrant influences of the Commonwealth. It was a bridge between the old world and the new, proving that tradition could always be reinvented. As we look at this yellow, creamy classic, it's worth asking, though you enjoy a touch of sweetness like apricots or raisins in your savoury chicken dishes, Or should fruit stay far away from the dinner plate? While it remains a staple at British street parties and royal picnics, it isn't without its critics. Is coronation chicken a timeless masterpiece of British Indian fusion, or is it a controversial relic of the 1950s that should have stayed in the past? For the Queen, however, it remained a delicious reminder of the day she truly put on the crown. Dish number 4. Sandringham Game Pie Accession Day was always a deeply emotional time for the Queen, as it was spent at Sandringham, the very place where her father, King George V, drew his final breath. To honour his memory, she often chose a dish that reflected his passion for the English countryside, the Sandringham Game Pie. This was no ordinary pastry. It was a rustic, towering creation packed with the finest venison, pheasant, and partridge, all sourced directly from the royal estate. Encased in a rich, golden, hot water crust, the pie was a celebration of the land and a tribute to the man who taught her everything about duty and the British way of life. It brought the spirit of the forest to the table, offering a hearty, grounding comfort during a day of solemn reflection. Thinking about such a traditional, earthy meal, one has to wonder, have you ever tried a meat pie with a rich, flaky crust, or do you prefer your pies sweet and filled with fruit? While it is a classic of British heritage, it does raise modern questions. Is the tradition of a game pie a beautiful way to live off the land, or is the use of hunted game like venison and pheasant too controversial for today's world? For Elizabeth, it was simply the taste of home and a quiet, delicious way to keep her father's spirit alive at the dinner table. Dish number 5. Bombe glacée royale. For a woman whose life was defined by the weight of a crown, dessert was the one place where Queen Elizabeth allowed for a bit of whimsical indulgence. The bombe glacée royale was a frequent star of her accession day celebrations, a stunning, dome-shaped ice cream creation lined with rich chocolate or vanilla and filled with a vibrant center of fruit puree, often made from the strawberries grown at Balmoral. This dish wasn't just a treat, it was a nod to the grand, artistic culinary traditions of her Victorian ancestors. It provided a cold, refreshing, and sweet finale to a day that was often emotionally heavy and filled with formal reflection. The bomb arrived at the table like a piece of edible architecture, proving that even a quiet anniversary deserved a touch of royal theatre. Looking at this masterpiece of frozen cream and fruit, it makes you think, what is your absolute favourite flavour of ice cream when you want to treat yourself? While the Queen adored this classic, it does spark a bit of a debate among food lovers. Is an elaborate ice cream bomb a sophisticated display of royal pastry art, or is it just a glorified childish dessert that has no place at a serious state dinner? For Elizabeth, however, it was the perfect, sweet ending to the day her reign began. Dish number 6. Smoked salmon blinis. In the quiet hours before the main accession day dinner, the Queen often favoured the delicate elegance of smoked salmon blinis. These bite-sized treats, fluffy pancakes topped with a swirl of rich cream and a ribbon of the finest Scottish smoked salmon, were the perfect bridge between afternoon tea and a formal evening. For Elizabeth, these blinis represented the new Elizabethan age period of her reign, characterised by grace, modernity, and a subtle sophistication that moved away from the heavy, over-the-top feasts of the past. They were light enough to enjoy during a busy day of reflection, yet luxurious enough to remind everyone that this was a royal occasion. As we imagine these elegant appetizers being served on silver trays, it brings up a fun thought. Do you generally reach for snacks that are salty and savory like these? Or are you someone who always goes for something sweet? Despite their popularity at every high-end party, the simplicity of the dish often leads to a bit of a discussion. Is it worth paying a premium for royal-grade smoked salmon from specific locks, or is the difference in taste just a bit of clever marketing? For the Queen, however, the quality of the salmon was a matter of national pride, making these blinis a small but significant tribute to the British waters she loved. Dish number 7. Roast lamb with mint sauce. While the Queen's palate often leaned toward the wild game of her estates, a traditional roast lamb with mint sauce was frequently the centerpiece for her more family-focused accession day gatherings. This dish is the very soul of a British Sunday, representing a sense of continuity and domestic comfort that stretched across her 70-year reign. The lamb, slow-roasted until tender, was always served with a vibrant, sharp mint saucier condiment the Queen insisted upon. For Elizabeth, this meal was a way to ground the monarchy in the shared traditions of her people, mirroring the lunches happening in homes all across the United Kingdom. It was a dish that celebrated the seasons and the simple excellence of British farming. As we picture that beautifully carved roast on a silver platter, It makes you wonder, though, you enjoy a zesty mint sauce or gravy on your meat, or do you think it's a strange combination? Even though it is a national favourite, the pairing remains a point of contention for many. Is mint sauce the perfect refreshing partner for rich lamb, or is it a controversial addition that completely overpowers the flavour of the meat? For the Queen, a roast was never truly complete without it. Dish number 8, Oofstafabagay savoury moose eggs. The Queen had a deep appreciation for food that was as visually stunning as it was delicious, and the Oofstafabagaya savoury moose eggs were a testament to that royal flair. These weren't actual chocolate eggs, but rather delicate, egg-shaped mouses often made from salmon or lobster, decorated with tiny flecks of gold leaf or herbs to resemble the famous jeweled eggs of the Russian Tsars. Serving these on Accession Day was a subtle nod to her own royal lineage and the artistic history of the European monarchies. It was a dish that required immense skill from the palace chefs, turning a simple appetizer into a miniature piece of edible art that surprised and delighted her guests. Seeing such a creative display on the table might make you ask yourself, though, you personally care more about the artistic presentation of your food, or is the taste the only thing that matters to you? This level of detail always sparks an interesting debate in the culinary world. Is decorating food with expensive gold leaf a beautiful, time-honored tradition, or is it just an unnecessary and controversial waste of money? For Elizabeth, however, the wow factor of a well-presented dish was a vital part of the royal experience. Dish number 9, asparagus with hollandaise for Queen Elizabeth. The arrival of Accession Day often coincided with her desire for the freshest seasonal flavours, and nothing captured that better than English asparagus. She was a firm believer in eating what the land provided at the right time, and a platter of tender, vibrant green stalks was a frequent choice for her lighter celebratory lunches. Drenched in a rich, buttery hollandaise sauce, with just a hint of lemon, this dish was one of the few indulgent vegetables she allowed herself to truly enjoy. It represented a sophisticated simplicity, a balance of the earthy, crisp vegetable and the luxurious, velvet-like sauce that had been a staple of royal dining for centuries. Watching those elegant stalks being served, it makes you wonder, though, you prefer your vegetables served plain and crunchy, or do you think a rich sauce like hollandaise makes everything better? Even though it is considered a high-end delicacy, it often starts a bit of a kitchen debate. Is asparagus truly the king of vegetables and a symbol of luxury, or is it just an overpriced seasonal weed that gets too much credit? For the Queen, however, it was a celebration of the British spring and a refreshing break from the heavier courses of a royal banquet. Dish number 10, chocolate perfection pie. To bring her close to the solemn and historic reflections of Accession Day, the Queen almost always turned to her ultimate weakness, the chocolate perfection pie. This legendary palace dessert is a dream for any cocoa lover, featuring a crisp pastry shell layered with cinnamon-infused chocolate cream and topped with delicate chocolate shavings. For Elizabeth, this wasn't just a dessert, it was the secret treat that signaled the end of a long, formal day. While she was known for her immense discipline and restraint, this pie was the one dish where she would often go back for seconds. It was a sweet, personal reward after the heavy duties of state, a reminder that even a monarch enjoys the simple, blissful comfort of a perfect slice of pie. As we imagine that rich, chocolatey goodness, it's hard not to ask when it comes to dessert, can you ever really have too much chocolate, or do you prefer something lighter? Even within the palace, the unique recipe often sparks a conversation. Is the addition of spicy cinnamon to a chocolate pie a match made in heaven, or is it a controversial flavor combination that ruins the purity of the chocolate? For the Queen, however, it was the only way to end her most important anniversary on a perfect note. As the candles dim and the silver is polished away at Sandringham, we are left with a portrait of a queen who was far more relatable than the crown might suggest. These 10 dishes, from the rustic game pies of her father's estate to the decadent chocolate treats, she couldn't resist reveal a woman who balanced the heavy burdens of history with the simple comforts of the table. Accession Day was a time of deep personal reflection, a day when food became a bridge between her public duty and her private heart. It reminds us that even behind the palace walls, life is measured in the rituals we keep and the flavors we share with those we love. But as we finish this journey through the Queen's secret menu, I want to hear from you. You were celebrating a life-changing moment. What is the one comfort dish you would have to have on your table? While we admire the traditions of the monarchy, it does leave us with one final thought. Do you think royal traditions like these help keep a nation's history alive, Or is it time for the modern world to move past these formal secret menus? If you enjoyed this trip down memory lane, be sure to give this video a like and subscribe for more nostalgic stories. See you next time.